I loved it. I loved his boldness. There was a certain thing, a certain boldness.
What does it really take to be loved by Hollywood's ultimate kingmaker? Clint Eastwood is a man revered and feared in Hollywood. Many have described him as cold, others have called him blunt, and some others have said that far from being friendly, he is quite dangerous. Even with all these things that have been said about him, Eastwood, a man who has created some of the best Hollywood works, has revealed the very 8 actors he loved the most, each name with a story held deeply by a man who has seen too much in Hollywood. What he had to say about these actors are not just interesting, but also entertaining. So grab a snack and sit tight as we explore each of these actors just from the mind of Eastwood. Starting with number 8, James Cagney.
Yeah, when I was growing up, I thought James Cagney. I thought he was he was.
Long before Eastwood chose to become an actor or a director, when he was just a child who was not sure about his path in life, James Cagney was in the picture. According to Eastwood, he loved watching Cagney's movies as a child and had so much admiration for him. Cagney wasn't just another actor, he was a force. With a presence so commanding, he made audiences believe that no matter who he was playing, from gangsters to tap dancers, he belonged at the center of the story. Eastwood recalled being glued to the screen when Cagney appeared, noticing how he didn't act like other Hollywood stars. Cagney had grit, raw nerve, and an unshakable confidence that made every role unforgettable. What fascinated Eastwood the most was Cagney's boldness, his willingness to embody ruthless characters without ever softening them for the audience. He didn't care about being likable, he cared about being real.
I loved it. I loved his boldness. There was a certain thing, a certain boldness.
One scene stayed with Eastwood for years. It was in the 1931 classic The Public Enemy, where Cagney's character, Tom Powers, walks into a room and without hesitation pulls the trigger on a rival. The moment was so sudden, so shocking, that it made Eastwood sit up straight. For a boy still figuring out what courage meant, that scene became a turning point. Eastwood later said that watching Cagney shoot a man on screen wasn't about the violence. It was about the nerve it took to play such a scene with absolute conviction. Eastwood recalled that it was at that moment that he decided he was going to have that kind of nerve too. Cagney's influence lingered through Eastwood's career. When he stepped into the role of Dirty Harry Callahan in 1971, he carried that same boldness. He confessed that Cagney was a huge inspiration. Cagney taught Eastwood that being fearless on screen didn't mean playing heroes. It meant embodying characters so fully that audiences believed them, whether they were saints or sinners. Eastwood often spoke about how Cagney shaped his philosophy as both an actor and director. While others focused on glamour or stardom, Eastwood leaned into authenticity, tension, and truth, things he saw in every Cagney performance. And just like Cagney, he refused to let Hollywood dictate his path. Cagney wasn't simply a childhood idol. He was the foundation of what it meant to be bold in cinema. The lessons from those black and white films never faded. Eastwood said he was grateful for people like Cagney, saying that if he managed to carve a legacy of grit and nerve in film, it was because James Cagney showed him, as a boy, how powerful fearlessness could look on screen. Number 7. Rowan Atkinson.
I think I'm turned on by people who have a...
In an interview with Channel E, Eastwood mentioned Atkinson as one of his most loved actors for a reason that's very relatable to many all over the world. Eastwood shared that he loves people with a great sense of humor, and Atkinson embodies that. Obviously, for decades, Eastwood has been known as Hollywood's tough guy, the silent gunslinger of spaghetti westerns and the gritty cop in Dirty Harry. But behind that hardened face lies a man who admits to needing laughter, sometimes desperately, as a way to balance the weight of playing serious roles. Atkinson, through his unforgettable creation Mr. Bean, became the unlikely figure who gave Eastwood that balance. What drew him in, Eastwood explained, was not just Atkinson's ability to be funny, but the brilliance in how he could make audiences laugh without words. In a world overloaded with dialogue-heavy films, Atkinson's physical comedy was a refreshing break, something Eastwood admired as both an actor and a director. Eastwood went on to describe one Mr. Bean episode in particular that left a lasting mark on him. It was the scene where Mr. Bean goes to church and struggles to stay awake during the sermon. From fumbling with the hymn book to nodding off and jerking awake, Atkinson transformed a simple, everyday moment into pure comedic gold. Eastwood admitted he had watched that scene over and over again, laughing each time as though it were the first. "That's the kind of humor that never dies," he reportedly said, emphasizing how timeless Atkinson's comedy was. Eastwood said that Atkinson's genius wasn't just about making people laugh. It was about making them feel human. The awkwardness, the clumsy mistakes, the silent struggles Mr. Bean faced were things everyone could relate to in one way or another. Eastwood believed that Atkinson had a rare ability to connect to people across cultures, generations, and languages. "It doesn't matter where you come from," he once said. "You see yourself in Mr. Bean." Interestingly, Eastwood also confessed that Atkinson's style of humor has somehow influenced the way he thought about storytelling. While Eastwood's films are worlds apart from Atkinson's slapstick comedies, he admired the simplicity of taking ordinary scenarios and showing them in extraordinary ways. To him, that was an art form, just as much as building tension in a Western or crafting suspense in a crime thriller. Most importantly, Eastwood loved the humility Atkinson carried off screen. Despite his global fame, Atkinson was known to be soft-spoken, reserved, and deeply thoughtful, a virtue Eastwood respected. The fact that such a quiet man could transform into one of the most rare comedic characters in history amazed him. Atkinson remains one of the actors anyone can love easily, and for Eastwood, that's the case. Number 6. Gene Hackman.
Gene I'd known for many years, but we'd never worked together.
Before 1992, Eastwood and Hackman had never collaborated for any work until the casting for the movie Unforgiven began. At that point, both men were already legends in their own right. Hackman had a career defined by fearless performances in films like The French Connection and Hoosiers, and Eastwood as the stoic gunslinger and director who had redefined westerns. But bringing them together wasn't as simple as making a phone call. Hackman had already made it clear that he no longer wanted to play violent characters. Hackman had grown weary of roles drenched in brutality, telling close friends and industry leaders that he wanted to move away from such portrayals.
At that time, he says, "I don't want to do any more violent pictures. I'm tired of it. I've been involved with a lot of them." He says,
His career had reached a point where he could afford to be selective, and he wasn't eager to revisit the kind of hardened roles that had made him famous. Yet when Clint Eastwood, who was both directing and starring in Unforgiven, personally reached out, something changed. Eastwood wanted Hackman for the role of Little Bill Daggett, the ruthless sheriff of Big Whiskey. It wasn't just a supporting role, it was a character at the heart of the film's moral conflict. Without Hackman, the story would lose much of its power. Eastwood explained the vision of the movie, a Western that wasn't about glorifying violence but about showing its consequences. Hackman listened, hesitant but intrigued. Against his earlier decision, Hackman agreed. Eastwood said his acceptance meant a lot to him. It was a gesture of trust and sacrifice. Hackman put aside his personal misgivings to serve the story Eastwood wanted to tell. Eastwood admitted he felt deeply honored that Hackman had reconsidered his stance for Unforgiven. On set, Hackman brought a chilling realism to Little Bill Daggett. His performance gave the film its edge, providing the perfect counterbalance to Eastwood's William Money, a reformed outlaw pulled back into violence. The tension between the two actors lit up the screen and carried the film to greatness. When Unforgiven was released in 1992, it was celebrated as a masterpiece. The film won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director for Eastwood, and Best Supporting Actor for Hackman. Since then, Hackman's relationship with Eastwood became even more personal. Number 5. Diane Wiest.
It didn't bother her at all.
Oh, I
She just
loved
jumped
it.
right in it.
I loved it. I loved it.
Eastwood shared that he has been a fan of Diane Wiest for the longest time. However, after collaborating with her as a co-star in his movie Mule, his admiration for her commitment to her work as an actor increased. He shared that while shooting for the movie, unknown to most people on set, he constantly forgot his lines and had to improvise. Yet, Wiest flowed effortlessly with her. In his opinion, such improvisation had the ability to destabilize most actors, but for her, it was different, and he hailed her for that. Wiest, a 2-time Academy Award-winning actress known for her quiet intensity and subtle brilliance, was cast as Mary, Eastwood's estranged wife in the 2018 crime drama. The role demanded a natural chemistry between the two, as they had to portray decades of unresolved tension, regret, and lingering affection. For Eastwood, who was both directing and acting, the challenge was immense, but Wiest brought a grounding presence to the set that helped carry the emotional weight of the story. Wiest's humility also stood out for Eastwood. Despite her remarkable career, working with directors like Woody Allen, Ron Howard, and Lawrence Kasdan, she carried no airs on set. She was approachable, focused, and dedicated purely to the craft. Eastwood noted that she treated every moment, every pause, and every line as if it were part of something bigger than just a movie. Their collaboration on The Mule wasn't just about acting. It was about trust. Eastwood trusted that Wiest would catch him whenever his improvisations veered off, and she trusted him to create a space where their performances could breathe. Together, they built a chemistry that resonated with audiences, making their on-screen relationship one of the most poignant elements of the film. Number 4. Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman and Gene, both excellent actors. And I got about 2 lines into the scene and I said,
Only very few actors in Hollywood have been referred to as excellent by Eastwood. Freeman happens to be one of them. Their friendship and professional bonds span decades, built on respect, trust, and an unshakable belief in each other's craft. Eastwood described Freeman as an actor who doesn't just play roles, but embodies them with a natural ease that makes audiences forget they are watching fiction. Their story together began long ago, but in 1992, they collaborated for the movie Unforgiven. Freeman played Ned Logan, a retired gunslinger who joins Eastwood's William Money for one last job. For Eastwood, who was both directing and acting, the choice of who would stand beside him on screen was critical. He needed someone with gravitas, someone who could project strength and vulnerability at the same time. Freeman, with his steady presence and understated brilliance, was the perfect fit. Eastwood later shared that what impressed him most was Freeman's ability to say so much with so little. He recalled moments on set where Freeman could just glance, shift slightly, or hold a pause, and suddenly the entire scene carried a weight words could not deliver. "That's excellence," Eastwood once remarked, "the kind that doesn't shout but stays with you." Their collaboration did not stop there. Years later, they reunited for Million Dollar Baby 2004, where Freeman played Eddie Scrap Iron Dupress, the ex-boxer and gym caretaker who narrates the story. The role earned Freeman the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. For Eastwood, directing and sharing the screen with Freeman again was like working with an old partner who could read his thoughts before he even said them. He admitted that Freeman's voice, warm, commanding, and timeless, was the heartbeat of the film, and without it, the story would not have carried the same emotional depth. Off-screen, Eastwood and Freeman built a friendship that was just as meaningful. Both men were known for their discipline and their no-nonsense approach to work. Freeman admired Eastwood's calm direction, his ability to trust actors and give them space to explore. Eastwood, in turn, admired Freeman's authenticity and the fact that, despite his fame, he carried himself with humility. Eastwood joked that directing Freeman was almost unnecessary. "You don't tell Morgan what to do," he said. "You just point the camera and let him be." That sentiment summed up the trust and admiration he held. Their partnership across Unforgiven and Million Dollar Baby became legendary, but their bond went beyond the films. Number 3. Molly Shannon. While speaking on The Tonight Show, Eastwood revealed how much he loved Shannon's epic humor and even went ahead to impersonate her on the show, leaving everyone present laughing out loud. The surprising thing was that he said he had never met her before, but was always happy to watch her.
Because I haven't met Molly Shannon personally.
She's tough too, yeah.
It was one of those rare moments where the usually reserved Eastwood let his admiration for a comedian shine openly. Shannon, known for her unforgettable characters on Saturday Night Live in the 1990 seconds, had long since established her reputation as one of Hollywood's most fearless comedians. She could take the simplest scenario and transform it into something chaotic, heartfelt, and hysterical. For Eastwood, who often gravitated toward more serious, gritty storytelling, Shannon's work was a refreshing reminder of how important humor is in navigating life's toughest moments. Eastwood shared that what he admired about Shannon wasn't just her ability to make people laugh, it was her toughness. Behind the quirky characters and comedic sketches, she was a woman who had endured profound personal losses early in her life, including the death of her mother in a car accident when Shannon was just a child. Instead of being broken, she turned her pain into a resilience that gave her comedy its edge. That kind of strength mirrored the toughness he valued in actors and colleagues he worked with throughout his career. He recalled watching her famous SNL skit, Mary Catherine Gallagher, the awkward Catholic schoolgirl who would strike dramatic poses after throwing herself into absurd stunts. Eastwood said he admired how Shannon committed fully to the role, even when it meant physical risk. She was tough, he explained, because comedy like that isn't just funny, it's fearless. For a director who had spent his career pushing boundaries with roles that tested human endurance, Shannon's fearless approach to comedy was something he deeply respected. What surprised many was Eastwood's confession that watching Shannon became something of a personal ritual. He said her sketches could lift his mood even after a long day of directing or acting. Though they'd never worked together, Eastwood said he always imagined how refreshing it would be to direct someone like Shannon. Number 2. Jeff Daniels. Away from the set, camera, and screen, Eastwood and Daniels have maintained quite a close relationship, not just as colleagues but as friends that mean a lot to each other. In fact, Stewart once shared a story of how Eastwood helped him avoid a fatal truck accident while shooting the 2002 movie Bloodwork, the crime thriller that Eastwood both directed and starred in.
I look over at Clint, and Clint would pull, he says, "That was close."
That incident became one of many that solidified the bond between the two men. Eastwood has always praised Daniels for his versatility vulnerability. By the time Bloodwork was in production, Daniels was already well known for his ability to balance comedy, drama, and stage work with effortless skill. Eastwood admired that Daniels never leaned on typecasting, instead choosing roles that challenged him. In Eastwood's view, Daniels embodied the kind of actor Hollywood often undervalued: quietly brilliant, consistent, and able to bring truth to any script placed before him. Eastwood later admitted that what impressed him most about Daniels was not only his professionalism, but also his resilience. Despite being shaken by the near accident, Daniels came back to work the next day unfazed, delivering one of his strongest performances. Eastwood loved that kind of virtue. It mirrored his own work ethic and no-nonsense approach to filmmaking. In interviews, Eastwood has described Daniels as the kind of actor who doesn't chase the spotlight but earns it. What he admired most was Daniels' honesty, both in his craft and in his character. On screen, Daniels could play a warm, endearing everyman or a menacing antagonist with equal conviction. Off-screen, he was grounded, loyal, and respectful of the art of storytelling. For Eastwood, those qualities mattered. Hollywood was full of egos, but Daniels wasn't one of them. Instead, he was someone who showed up prepared, gave everything to the role, and treated his colleagues like family. To this day, Eastwood's love for Jeff Daniels is rooted in those qualities: his integrity, his talent, and his resilience. Number 1. Meryl Streep. Eastwood and Streep collaborated on The Bridges of Madison County in 1995, a film that would become one of the most memorable romantic dramas of its era. Eastwood not only directed the film, but also starred opposite Streep, and from the moment they began working together, he was struck by her extraordinary dedication to her craft. For Eastwood, the story was deeply emotional, requiring a vulnerability that many actors shy away from. But Streep embraced the role of Francesca Johnson with fearless honesty. Eastwood said that watching her prepare for scenes was like watching a master painter at work. She had an ability to draw out subtle emotions with just a look, a pause, or the way she carried herself in silence. That level of detail fascinated Eastwood, who was known for his own minimalist approach to acting and directing. Their chemistry on screen was undeniable, but off-screen, Eastwood developed an even deeper admiration for Streep. She was fiercely professional, arriving to set fully prepared, yet she never made the atmosphere tense. Instead, she brought warmth and humor, qualities that balanced Eastwood's quiet intensity. Crew members often recalled how she and Eastwood would share jokes between takes, and yet when the camera rolled, they slipped seamlessly into characters who made audiences believe in the aching reality of forbidden love. What Eastwood valued most, though, was Streep's ability to adapt. Hollywood had long labeled her as the queen of prestige drama, but Eastwood saw someone who could adapt to anything, whether it was a gritty role, a period piece, or a stripped-down love story like The Bridges of Madison County. He admired that she wasn't afraid to be vulnerable on screen and yet carried herself with complete strength off it. In an interview, Eastwood admitted that Streep elevated not just the film, but also him as an actor. "She made me better," he once said, acknowledging that her depth pushed him to reach places in his performance he might not have reached otherwise. That kind of honesty stayed with him long after filming ended. Their collaboration didn't just produce a great film, it gave Eastwood one of the professional highlights of his career. To this day, he counts Meryl Streep among the actors he respects the most, not only for her legendary talent, but also for the humanity and grace she brought to their time together. Let's know your thoughts in the comments section. Subscribe to this channel for more videos like this, like and share.